if you're on YouTube, and I'm subscribed to a few channels where they talk about they just talk about the difference between men and women, um, the power dynamics, and the like. It's easy to blame women or blame men for the other party's problems. Like women want to blame men and men want to blame women. I just try to put myself in the other person's shoes, and that's really what I've realized is that you can't blame women for doing what they do. Um, it's just unfortunate because the power dynamics shift at a certain point in time. Women that are like very young and good looking, who are like 17, 18, 20, 25, anywhere from like 17 to like 27. Usually there's like a 10-year period, maybe less, maybe more, depending on the individual, but they get a lot of attention, just simply because of the way they look. And they're not going to have kids or baggage, really, because they're young. And men who are that age basically get no attention. They don't have any resources, and the men that are older are showing a lot of attention to the younger women because everyone is interested in younger women. It doesn't matter if you're, when I was 17 or when I was 20, I was interested in 17 or 20-year-old women when I was that age. But as you get older as a man, you still stay attracted to that type of woman, a woman that's young and good looking. But as women age, unfortunately for them, most all of them, they lose a lot of that attention they get from men, because now the same men who are maybe their own age or older they're still interested in the same type of woman, 20 to 25, good looking, carefree, no problems. That's what they're looking for. So there's a really big premium on that. And if you're a woman in that age range, you don't know any better. You're just acting as you would. You have a lot of men interested in you, and they think that that's because of it's who they are, when really it's not because of who they are. It's because they're a certain age range, they look a certain way, and they're not going to have any kids or not going to have really any emotional baggage that the guy is going to deal with. So they are highly desirable at that age. And then again, as they age older, it's just unfortunate because if they didn't get married, then most men are not going to be interested in pursuing them. So do you blame women for that? No, you can't, because they're just playing the hand they're dealt. Men are playing the hand they're dealt too. Hey, I'm 18, I'm 22, I'm 25-year-old guy. Unless I'm like a, muscular, tall, make a lot of money guy, most women aren't going to, they're just not going to be interested in me because they're getting pursued by so many different guys. Even if you're a high value guy, women just get inundated with people wanting to spend time with them if they're a young, attractive woman. So that's why men typically, oh man, this sucks. Women's standards are crazy, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, they are crazy but the market's just telling them that's true. They have lots of guys messaging them, lots of guys wanting to be with them. And, when you have a lot of options, it's hard to settle down. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If I had a lot of women pursuing me or chasing me, I would act the same way. I think it would be hard for the average guy to ignore so much attention from the opposite sex, unless you really had a great relationship with someone. But you see it with women that are 23 and good looking. A lot of times they don't pair off with someone because they love the attention, and it's just a high for them. It's like a drug. And so I can't blame them for that. I can't, because I would probably do the same thing if I was in their shoes. Now, it's easy to criticize their position and say, well, why, you have such crazy standards, and you're manipulating all these people, and you're talking to them, and ultimately you don't want anything from them. But they get a joy out of all that attention they get from the opposite sex. And that all changes, and it's just kind of, I don't understand why then, when a woman's 30 or 35, why she's so bitter about the situation. Like, there might be a moment of realization where you're like, oh my gosh, man, I didn't realize I had it so good. You know, it's like that saying is, you don't know how good you had it or how good someone was until they're gone, right? Because then it's out of your life. Well, now you're 32, 35, no guy wants to be with you, or maybe the only guys that want to be with you are guys that you feel are not up to your standard. And so you're never going to settle down with anyone, even though you want to, and you want to maybe have a family, but you're kind of past the point of doing that biologically. And any of the guys that you would maybe consider starting a family with, they're not interested in a 35-year-old woman. They're interested in a 25-year-old woman or younger. And they have the ability to do that if that's where the power dynamic changes. Now a 35-year-old guy that has some amount of resources, you know, he can do that if that's what he wants to do. To go after a younger woman and try to have a family. You know, and the last 10 years of his life, maybe he had to sacrifice certain other things and not get a lot of attention from women to have the ability now at an older age to pursue a younger woman. So it's just a cycle. And, you know, like, unfortunately for women, they have to come to that harsh realization at an older date, and then kind of come to the realization that their best days are over, right? And it's so true. You never realize how good you have it. You just think that's normal. Like, if you have a lot of people wanting to spend time with you, you just, and that goes on for 8 years or 10 years, you just think that's normal. You just think that's your life and that it's never going to change. And then when it does change, even a lot of them, they don't self-reflect and say, man, I really did have a lot of good people that I maybe could have done stuff with, but I chose to just keep kind of playing the field. And I'm not going to look at my own situation and say I did anything wrong. I'm just going to blame men. I'm going to say that there's no good guys out there, and why doesn't anyone want me? At the end of the day, men don't care about your career. They don't care about, you know, the fact that you're some corporate worker, or the fact that you're educated and smart. They don't care about that. You know, they'll date a 23-year-old Starbucks barista if they're attracted to her. That's enough, right? They know any of the resources you have, you know, the overwhelming majority amount of the time are not going to be spent on them anyway, and they don't care about that. They value, you know, youth and beauty and femininity over any of that other stuff, and they don't want to compete. That's why a lot of those women that are, you know, going after careers and jobs and then want a family at an older age, they're typically leaving empty-handed, because they just can't compete with it. Even if they're, you know, they're better off financially, they have a much better career. That's just not for most men, that's not it's not a checkbox. It's not something that men are looking for in a relationship. They'll choose the 23-year-old barista over a 35-year-old senior account manager or whatever, senior executive, because it's not important to them. They still kind of understand that if they get into a relationship, that probably they're going to have to be the breadwinner, and so your career is not important, and your age is going to be important, and so yeah, it's just kind of interesting now, because I feel men and women are definitely more equal, but a lot of women still expect certain things to be traditional when it comes to dating. So I think it's just going to be probably harder for people to pair bond. And again, I can't blame women for it. You know, you can't. And you can't blame men for it. I think it's just nature and the way things work. But if you try to make men and women equal, we're going to keep having this problem, because women still do want to have a family, and so they're kind of conflicted between, you know, focusing on going to school and getting a career and having a good job and being a successful career person. If they spend too much time doing that, you know, they sacrifice probably having a family at an age where a guy is going to want to start a family. You know, most guys do not want to start a family with a 35-year-old woman. they would rather go for a younger option for a multitude of reasons. And so it's just kind of unfortunate for women that a lot of times they do have to choose one or the other, because it is kind of hard to be very successful in a career if you are having kids at 25 and you have to, you know, spend a lot of time and resources on your kids, which is time you can't devote to a career. So I understand the dilemma, and I do get it, but I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on it? It's just kind of the way of the world, I guess, and none of this is explained in school, or none of this. It's just stuff that people figure out going through life, and thankfully for men, you know, things typically get better as they get older. So you kind of spend the first half of your life you don't have a lot of money, you don't have, the opposite sex is not interested in you unless you're, you know, very attractive. And but for women, it's like if they reach 35 and they didn't realize what was going on, it's like, man, now the rest of my life is, you know, no guy wants to be with me, no one's gonna support me or help support me, I have to live in an apartment, maybe I don't own anything, I have to work a 9-to-5 job the rest of my life, and I'm not gonna have a family. So that's kind of depressing too, right? So it's just kind of a tough situation. But I'll leave it there. You guys let me know what you think if you have any thoughts on it. And as always, have a good day.